What's going on? And good evening, everybody. It's a Worlds Collide Wednesday. I am your host, the Schwantz27, and we're going to be doing another Final Fantasy VI randomizer stream race for you all this evening. Today, we've got a couple of racers from the Tonic E division in our Ultros League. So when you enter in the Ultros League, you will enter in the Tonic division. So Tonic E has some really good racers in that division. Currently, Goku Black on the right is in fourth, with Keith McRocks in seventh place with just 5 points. However, we have a catch-up mechanic, sort of like how akin to Mario Kart scoring is, where the first place player gets 9 points, the second place player gets 6 points. So anybody winning the race has a good chance to in this one. So what the heck are we watching here? Basically, Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide is a randomizer for Final Fantasy VI, or you prefer the North American flavor of the title, Final Fantasy III, where stuff in the chests and shops are randomized, the bosses are shuffled amongst themselves, the characters you recruit, the abilities that they have, the spells that espers teach, the locations of said espers. All that stuff is randomized. It's thrown into a giant bubble. And as you can see on the overlay here, you have to get to recruiting 6 characters and grabbing 9 espers. And in order to do that, you get rewarded from doing the different world events in the Final Fantasy VI game. We'll go over what all of that means in a second. Once you get to 6 characters and 9 espers, you can go up against the final boss of the game, Kefka. So we're going to look for both of our runners to get to that as quickly as they possibly can. This is a speed run after all. There is a couple of mechanics in the Worlds Collide randomizer that I also want to draw your attention to. The first one being that you get to do what's called the Kefka Tower skip, where you skip right to the boss gauntlet at the statues if you recruit either 9 characters or 12 espers. If you go like really, really overboard, then we sort of have a mechanic for you to go ahead and do that. So it looks like our race has been off and started. Keith McRocks here, a little bit behind the 8 ball, as we have Goku Black coming in here with Blessed with Health is one of our options, and Magitech on Mog is another one. Wow, that's really nice to see, especially because in Ultros League Season 3, if you go all the way through the Magitech factory, Celeste is able to give you the full Magitech upgrade from just the Fire, Ice, Bolt Beam, and Heal Force, so that you could get Tech Missile here. We're having a little struggle, I think, with Goku's stream. Let me see if I can get it back, or if this is a situation that is going to happen throughout the entirety of the stream here, which would be rather unfortunate. But we start out with a normal play for our runners here. We're either going to Narsh, which is where Goku Black is, or Keith McRocks is in the Returner's hideout. So the first 5 to 10 minutes of a Worlds Collide feed is usually going around and collecting treasure just to see what the seed gives you, just to see what your options are here. And because all the treasure chests are randomized, right? So we never know what we're going to get out of them. We're also going to look in some shops here. We see some dried meat early. We're going to pick that up just in case we end up with Gao at some point later on in the seed. Gao, so there's this concept in Worlds Collide called character gating, where the characters that you have will unlock the different parts of the game in Worlds Collide. So, for instance, our current party setup has Celeste plus Mog plus Umaro. Celeste will open up 3 different world events, the first of which being the South Figaro prisoner spot. So we'll probably see Keith end up grabbing the South Figaro prisoner spot here in just a second, because there is no fight before that. You just go down to the basement and you go and grab whatever the reward is there. Celeste also, experience egg in the shop there. That is the single probably best item in the entire game that will double the experience of whomever is wearing that experience egg. So Keith does not have 65,335 VP yet, but I'm assuming he's going to collect some treasure and sell it for that experience egg there. So in addition to the South Figaro prisoner spot, Celeste also opens up the Opera House disruption, the part where Ultros goes to throw that 4-ton weight or whatever it is on the party, and also opens up the Magitech factory that I talked about earlier, which is a 3-part check. There are the first 2 parts are the first 2 bosses in the Magitech factory, and then the 3rd part is after the minecart ride with 3 fixed encounters and 2 more bosses. So you will get a guaranteed Esper item at the end of that, and we also have Mog with Magitech, so we will unlock the upgraded Magitech ability. Mog actually got a pretty decent buff with Season 2 of, or Season 3 rather, of Ultra Speed, and there's some flame shields in the shop as well. So lots of good stuff in shops here. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of stuff to sell. There is a Mega Elixir to sell. He's opting to pick up the flame shield. He also does know that there is an experience egg there, so maybe he picks up 1 flame shield now, goes and loots the basement, and goes and gets enough for an experience egg later. So Mog got a bit of a buff with Ultra Sleek Season 3. He will open up the Lone Wolf check as it was in other seasons. However, if you get nourished, now instead of making you walk all the way back down, you get teleported straight to Arvin's and Arvis's house. Sorry, Arvind is somebody I work with. Arvis's house, and Arvis will also trigger the Moogle Defense check, which is the brand new check for Mog that's in the Ultra League in Season 3 here. So that could be exciting to see that. And then Umaro has 1 check to unlock the Yeti Cave in the World of Ruin. You can actually peek it on your way up to doing the Lone Wolf Mog check. And we've got Go-Go, so we already have the 4th character there for Keith McCrox. And I'm going to see what the heck I can do about Goku's screen here. Let's see if it comes back to a little bit. In the meantime, we are looting the basement. So the treasures in the basement, you can only loot once. They are not shared between the different worlds as they are in the World of Ruin. So in the World of Ruin, the outdoor chests are actually different than the outdoor chests in the World of Balance. So you can actually double dip and get both of them, which is kind of cool. And we'll hopefully see our runners do that. Also picking up a Rage Ring there, which is something that Umaro can naturally equip. However, everybody in Ultros League has a 33% chance of taking or equipping something that they could not normally equip in Vanilla. So in the Vanilla game, only Umaro could wear the Rage Ring, but in Worlds Collide, our other characters have a 33% chance to equip it. And it's a pretty good relic. It increases your strength by 5, and it also gives you fire absorption and lightning nullification, so some good elemental safety there. A very expensive Zen Thief, however, is selling an Esper for 65,000. So we'll see if it's cheaper in the World of Ruin. I would have to imagine that it is. It has to be, because it's just way too expensive in the World of Ruin. So Keith did not pick up the experience egg, and I don't think Goku Black did either. The problem is that egg is very expensive, so we're going to have to continue looting. Because Keith, remember, has only looted the Returner's Hideout and South Figaro. He hasn't gone to Narsh like Goku has to do any looting, and it looks like he's going to potentially go there now. Just kidding, over to the World of Ruin here. I'm going to loot South Figaro in the World of Ruin. Like I said, the treasure chests on the exterior part of the town you can loot multiple times. Once in the World of Balance, once in the World of Ruin. By the way, ff6worldscollide.com is the link to our website. That is where you can roll a seed for your own, or there's also a link to our Discord channel where you can interact with the community, and you can even join the Ultras League and be involved in the races and all of the other fun stuff here. It looks like Keith is trying to figure out where Tizen is. There it is. So without having access to Sabin, we cannot do the collapsing house yet in Tizen. But maybe that's a good thing, because he's looking to see what this is here. It is 40,000 GP, so it's a little bit cheaper in the World of Ruin, but still a very expensive piece of gear. And that is a dragon horn there in the relic shop with Keith. There was some dragoon boots in that shop in World of Balance South Figaro along with that experience egg, so we could make an instant dragoon set, and that would be really nice for Mog, because Mog can naturally equip all of the lances in the game. Yeah, it's very weird, because on Goku's actual stream, it's not nearly as bad as it looks on our end of things. So it's pixelated, but at least you can see movement, versus this is, you know, frame by frame here, unfortunately. And since we only have health and Mog has Magitech, those are two commands that temporary characters use. So for health, it's Banon's command, and for Magitech, it's Para, Biggs, and Wedge, or Nix. Goku, I almost said Goku again. Go can only put either fight or magic or item to their command list, because it does not allow Go-Go to add those temporary commands. Technically, you will never have those characters when you have Go-Go, because Go-Go is only in the World of Ruin, whereas you know, Magitech and Health are both from the World of Balance. Same thing with Shock, although Shock is not used in Ultra League. We're in Albrook here from Keith, as there is an experience egg there on the screen in Goku's inventory, so he did go and pick it up. Getting the bad news that it's still very expensive there in the World of Ruin as well. So we did acquire Go-Go, and Go-Go opens up the Zone Eater check, which is a check that you don't need a battle to fight, so that's what we call a free check. Same thing with the Lone Wolf in the case of Mog, it's what we would call a free check. Another Flame Shield pickup there for Keith. So Flame Shield, in addition to absorbing fire and nullifying ice, will teach your character a tier 2 version of whatever elemental spell it is. So in this case, we're going to learn Fire 2 pretty quickly. And that's going to be nice for Celeste, because right now all she can do is health. Mog at least has Fire Beam, Ice Beam, and Bolt Beam, of which they have the same power stat as a Fire 2, Ice 2, or Bolt 2 spell. However, the beams are only single target, whereas the spell you could multi-target if you really wanted to. Keith taking a detour and heading to World of Balance Jiror. Meanwhile, Goku is heading into the Opera House Disruption. This is a pretty popular spot for a check in the early game, because you have to have fixed encounters to fight the rats that are scurrying about the top of the screen there. And how Worlds Collide works is that the enemies in the game are scaled based off of what your progression is, right? So in this case, we have 4 characters for each of our runners. That means all of the enemies that they will be fighting at this point are level 4 times 2, or 8. Obviously, with the more characters and espers you accrue, the higher your scaling goes, so you don't want to have enemies that are constantly higher level than you. It's a good idea to take some fights prior to actually fighting your first boss. And that's exactly what Goku is doing here by going into the Opera House, because there are rats on the way to Ultra. Yeah, so with the same amount of money that he put towards those 2 Flame Shields, he could have bought 1 experience egg. Although the Flame Shield was still cheaper, it was like 28,000, so it was slightly cheaper. But experience egg, in my opinion, best item in the game. Levels are the most important thing in Worlds Collide. Levels will help you beat pretty much everything. Maybe I can turn down the quality here. I think I just screwed it up. Let me put it back to what it was. As I completely butchered the stream for everybody. All right, so both of our runners are in the Opera House Disruption here. Heath slightly further behind because he went to do that dip into Jador. Goku Black on his screen, it's hard to tell, but he is using Revivifies against the Apparite and the Lich, both of which are undead enemies. So nice heads-up play there for him, knowing that the undead enemies could be easily dispatched of with a Revivify or a Phoenix Down, one of the healing spells. Heath knows it too, so he's going to go ahead and do the same. Coincidentally, Heath McRocks was our Chupon's Pit, or Chupon's Pal, rather, award winner. He was the winner of the Chupon's Pit in the Coliseum. So out of the not top 32 runners that made the tournament, he was the best. So, you know, we got some good runners here in this particular race. Screen issues aside, unfortunately for Goku here. So these fights are pretty easy because of the nature of them being undead. Additionally, they will give you some decent MP as well. So these are some pretty nice ones to find right off the bat. And the great thing about Gogo is that even though you can't pick the Magitech ability for Gogo, Gogo can mimic the Magitech ability immediately after. So that's exactly what Keith is taking advantage of here. Yeah, so decent XP for each of these fights here. So that'll hopefully get us to a pretty good enough state, a good enough level in order to fight whatever the boss is at the end of it. Looks like Goku's going to get here first. Meanwhile, that Lich will use fire, so that's one of those enemies that you kind of have to be careful of at low health. So it's just better to just get rid of them right away. Meanwhile, Goku is going to show us the boss, I think, of this. And hey, look at that. It's an Ultros, but not the Ultros. So this is the Ultros from Esper Mountain, or Ultros number 3 as it's known. Whereas the Opera House Ultros is known as Ultros number 2. And in Ultros number 2's case, you would fight him in a side attack formation, where there's Ultros in the middle. So that's how you could sort of tell which Ultros is this Ultros. And this is also Ultros League. So everything's coming up Octopus here so far in in our race. All of those elemental shields are getting put to good use here. And it looks like Goku has defeated our first boss here. So we'll see what this reward is here. And it looks like it's a soldier sprite, so that is going to be not a character. And since I am cheating and have Goku stream up, that is an Esper Siren, so he's got the first Esper on the board here. Out to an early progression lead. But in Worlds Collide, this is not a game that's based on like a key item or anything like that. A lot of the times, it's very hard to tell who's going to lead because our runners can go in wildly different paths. Keith, meanwhile, getting the news that this is not going to be a character here. However, Siren is a really good Esper to see. Even though our runners, Fire 3 and Pearl, that's a really nice Esper to see. Even though our runners are worried about what's right in front of them, they are also trying to get to the end game. And since the end game requires fighting Kefka, the same boss every single time, we know exactly what his strengths and weaknesses are. So, Siren, as an Esper, will cast Mute on everything on the screen, which will nullify magic from Tier 2. So it's nice to see. And it looks like both of our runners following in each other's footsteps again, both heading off to the Magitech Factory. I really like this play, to do Magitech Factory early, and especially to go all the way through to Magitech, because Mog does have that Magitech ability. So going through the Magitech Factory will allow us to get that Magitech upgrade as Keith goes and gets the treasure chest from way over on the other side. I'm joined in the commentary booth by Arusta. Good evening, Arusta. How are you doing?
I am very well. How are you tonight?
Everything is going well, except for Goku's stream is a little weird, but hey, we'll figure that out as we go along.
I think we can still see he's in Magitech Factory. That's what's important.
Yeah. So I do have his stream up over here on another monitor. It is rather pixelated, but it's at least moving. Whereas, the drawing app is not behaving with me here on SpeedGaming, but that's okay. Anyway, both runners in Magitech Factory. We've got Mog with the Magitech command. So I was just commenting that I really like this play from both of our runners to go into Magitech Factory really early on in the seed, because then we could just turn Mog into a beast with that Tech Missile upgrade on the Magitech command.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have the benefit of getting Exfer, which is, for Final Kefka, very nice instant death for a couple of the enemies.
Well, we wish we had Exfer in this fight with the Ghost Train, because it is undead. And there is a flag that is turned on that will nullify the undead property from boss monsters, which means normally in the vanilla game you can just drop a Revivify on it. Of course, after you suplex the train. But you can't do that in Ultros League because we don't allow that to happen. I was hoping for a Scimitar proc, which would have been awesome, but that's not our luck here. However, with Bolt or with Fire Beam and Mimicking Fire Beam, that should take care of this boss no problem. Unfortunately, Celeste is down and she can't get up, so she will not get any XP for this fight.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still early enough in the seed that you feel like you have time to catch up on XP.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did see an experience egg for sale in the South Figaro Relic Shop, but Keith decided to go for a pair of flame shields instead of the experience egg. Meanwhile, Goku did pick up on that EXP egg, so we'll have to see how that impacts our runners with the rest of the race. Both of them here picking up the Unicorn Esper, another good one for Final Kefka. Life 2 and Speed +2 is always a welcome sign as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like, you mentioned you really like this play since you've got Magitech. I also really like it doing this early, both from having Tech Missile, but also that it's early enough whatever progression you get here, you're going to be able to use. It's not going to be something where it's like, oh, that's my 10th Esper or anything like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, nobody can use that fixed dice. No gambling Yeti, folks. But getting the fixed dice from a treasure chest in a hole in the wall, I don't think Goku went and got that, so we'll have to see if that comes up as a difference maker here. Meanwhile, we have tentacles, and that is not nice to see early on in the seed.
Yeah, because the unfortunate part about tentacles is that, once they grab one of your characters, you have trouble getting them out, like we're about to see, and there's no haste to counteract it, nothing like that.
Yeah, the Grabby Pasta will do a flat 60-ish damage every time it grabs onto you. So it's pretty devastating early on in the game because you don't have that big of an HP pool to draw from, but later on it's not so big of a deal. And what? I've never seen that before. Yeti just grabbed Mog out of the tentacle, threw it at another tentacle, and put it back in the other tentacle. I've never seen that before. That was wild.
Well, I mean, if you're going to grab him out, you might as well be nice and hand him back.
Unfortunately, the corpse of Mog is going to have to get revived here. And Celeste is also in danger of dying as well. Yeah, in addition to this fight being dangerous at low levels, it's also extremely slow, because as you mentioned, the Seize ability will not only pick up characters, but will slow or cast a slow status on your characters. So not only are they inherently getting grabbed and taken out of the fight, which means you do less damage, but they get slowed and their ATB bar doesn't fill up as fast either.
Yeah, and you might notice that, you see the green numbers on the tentacles, that's actually a drain spell, so at higher levels, 59 health is whatever, but here, it's actually a pretty decent percentage of what they're doing, especially some of the weaker characters.
Yeah, Yeti is just jumping across the screen, throwing everybody out here. You love to see it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like Umaru, but early in the seed, he's actually very, very, because he's got good starting stats and does high damage. He's not a bad character to start with.
Yeah, especially finding that Rage Ring in South Figaro really helps, because that throw ability will actually, ignore defense, and it does a lot of damage. It basically is the same as Yeti's Body Slam, but in a throw form. So
yeah, and right there...
is the animation faster? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know, but right there, one thing to point out is you might have noticed Keith accidentally healed that lower right tentacle, because there's one tentacle that absorbs fire, and that's unfortunately the one he hit.
Yeah, I could never remember with tentacles which is which. I usually just cast it and go, oh wait, that healed it? My bad.
Yeah, there's a lot of resistances and absorptions to remember.
Yeah, the only important one that I know is that the bottom left one can be hit with the instant death, and well, I don't think Goku has to worry about not picking up the fixed dice before this spot. Yet another pair of fixed dice we can't use. That sort of feels bad there.
Hey, that's a decent chunk of money, maybe. If you want to go back and maybe buy that experience egg, that's fixed dice or sell for a decent amount.
Oh yeah, that is very true. I would save at least one of them for whoever is going to replace the party member that is Yeti. I usually don't like to keep Yeti in past the early game. We did also, I think Keith saw that there was a dragon horn for sale in the Albrook relic shop, and there was Dragoon boots in the South Figaro weapon shop, so we could potentially make a Dragoon fixed dice build out of somebody if we run into, Setzer, who could naturally equip it, or a chance that one of our other characters can. And here comes the Indiana Jones Fun Spectacular. Check out those Mode 7 graphics. Amazing.
The flower of 1994 graphics right here.
A little bit of Phantom Train enemies here in the minecart. So there's 3 forced encounters and 2 bosses, but thankfully you get a story heal in between boss 1 and boss 2. Keith, again, knowing his vanilla knowledge, knows that those enemies are undead, throws a Revivify at them, and gets rid of them right away. So with the randomizer, one of the things I love about it is it combines knowledge of a randomizer with the knowledge of the vanilla game. So I find it's really fun in that aspect.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that's interesting about Worlds Collide is they keep, even though the locations are completely randomized, a lot of the vanilla knowledge still applies. However, if you're new to the game and, or interested in getting into it and you don't have all that vanilla knowledge, fortunately, there is a very, very nice wiki that includes a lot of the stuff that really, really helps you out as a newer player.
Yeah, so ff6worldscollide.com is the website, and we have links to wikis to help out. There's even a video tutorial series, Moogle's First Seed, I think it's called, and you could play along with the creator of whomever did that. I think it's Ravlin that did it, but it's really nice to allow you to get immersed into this if you're enjoying what you're watching, at least. Alright, so here at the end of the Magitech Factory's minecart ride, we're going to fight a boss. And then once we get past this boss, we'll fight a second boss, and we will get our reward. If it's a character, we could put them into the party right away. If it's an Esper, we have to wait until the fight's over, unfortunately. And this is like French vanilla, isn't it? The cranes here?
Yeah, and we'll see here, see if our runners remember which is which, because there's one that absorbs thunder, and then there's one that absorbs fire.
Yeah, and usually it's the one on the left that absorbs the lightning, but when they're formed up like this, it's kind of weird, because this is one of those fights where it's naturally a pincer attack, except, you know, in certain spots of the game, and this is one of the only spots that kind of messes with the type of battle formation that bosses have. The Phantom Train is another one, right, where it's always a back attack. So it's just interesting to see. But ice will kill both of the cranes, and that's Keith through first here.
I always feel bad for that soldier in Magitech armor. He's just chilling out, and you just run him over and knock him into a pit.
I mean, he's an Imperial soldier, and oh my goddess, this is not a fun one to fight at the end of a long Magitech Factory, and even worse, Goddess will proc this here, Love Token, and that means that whomever Love Token gets cast on will eat physical damage for the person that's attacking. So in this case, Yeti is gonna do the "why you hitting yourself?" Goddess also has very high magical defense, so you'll see these magical attacks are not hitting for very hard, and that's because of that high magic defense. We'll absorb lightning and pearl. We do have a pearl rod, which would be really not smart to use in this case.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate, because usually when you see like a tough boss, rods are a very nice early game thing to have. It's just unfortunately if all you've got is one they absorb, well, you're kind of stuck.
Gotta love when Yeti slams himself into himself. Yeah, it looks like just based on HP totals, Goku's levels are slightly higher, and we would expect that out of at least one of his characters that is wearing the experience egg. And here's where the battle is on a timer. So if Keith cannot beat this boss in the next 50 seconds, all of his characters will turn to zombies, and they will also turn to zombies when they die. So he's got to be very careful here. Got to employ some weight tricking, perhaps as Umaro goes the way of the the green zombie there. Meanwhile, on Goku's screen, it looks like Gogo has bit the dust, and now Celeste is down. So he's going to have to recover from this fight as well. Not one you want to see at the end of a long set of checks here.
Yeah, especially on Goku's side. Looks like Umaro is the only one alive right now, and unfortunately, since you can't control him, that might be a wipe.
Yeah, Overcast comes out, and you know what the worst part is that Umaro might just end up, you know, proccing love tokens so this way he cannot literally kill the boss. And that looks like that's a reset there for Goku. Thank goodness he did save at the save point after the minecart ride. Otherwise, that would have been a brutal time loss there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also one nice thing. Smart decision there. Sometimes, like, if you see the fights going in a way you're absolutely not going to win, save yourself the minute, 30 seconds, whatever it would take for Umaru to have just actually lost that fight and ate the game over.
Yeah, just like Kenny Rogers, right? You got to know when to hold him and when to fold him.
That's exactly right.
All right, so round 2 for Goku. And Keith is still struggling here, although Yeti thankfully hit the right target. Is he out of Revivifies, maybe? No, he's still got some more. Because I know that he was definitely using some of them to kill those undead mobs earlier on in his fights.
Yeah, and while it's normally not a good thing to watch a character die, in this case, the fact that Mog died and was revived actually is nice because it kills the condemn timer.
And there is Yeti throwing Go-Go at the problem. And the problem is Goddess. So Keith is our first one through Goddesses. It looks like Goku had to take yet another reset there. But the great thing about Keith is now his character, in addition to getting that Magitech, or in addition to getting that Esper rather, also has the Magitech upgrade. So I'm assuming we'll probably see Go-Go remain in the party just to mimic that tech missile that Mog will be able to use. So the Magitech upgrade basically is Terra's version of the Magitech commands from the very beginning of the game. So we now have access to Exfer, as you mentioned before, Arista. Wow, that's a nice Esper too there. Jeez. Couple of tier 3 elemental spells on that. I think there was Magic Power +1 on it as well. Anyway.
There was.
So in addition to the Exfer that you mentioned before for insta-deathing a target, we have Tech Missile, which is basically like a single target flare, plus it inflicts the sap or seizure status to slowly drain HP over time. And the other upgrades are Confuser, which will basically confuse the target, which is good for Katana Soul, and Bioblast, which is an AoE poison attack. It obviously won't work on undead mobs, but everything else is good. Foxy Shinespark in the chat asking, are there any other command upgrades like Magitech? Yes. So there is Sword Tech, which you would normally accrue in terms of levels. There is Sword Tech 1 through 8, and Sword Tech 8 you normally don't get to level 70. And in Worlds Collide, there's no way we're going to get that many levels in a seed. We normally top out in the high 30s, low 40s. Most of the time. That might be different here with the experience egg on the table, but after you defeat, or after you go through Cyan's Dream, which is a 3-part check, you unlock all 8 sword techs similar to doing that in the vanilla game, which is pretty powerful. I don't think there's another one that's like that. Is there, Arista?
There's not. There's options in the specific objective to say, like, learn magic or learn skills, but they're not part of this flag set, and they're ones that, as far as I can tell, aren't used very often.
Yeah, that's a good point, is how highly customizable Worlds Collide is. So if you want to add an objective that says, hey, if you, let's say, for instance, if you do Elite River, you could get the maximum morph duration for your morph timer. Or if you want to do some other quest, like Save Sid, for instance, you can learn all of the lores in the game, right? So it's really highly customizable with that. But like you said, that's for this particular set of options, we're only doing Magitech to all commands and Sword Tech to level 8.
Yeah, and part of the reason behind Magitech, just to provide slightly more detail, is that it's such a powerful command. Like, Tech Missile is one of the best attacks in the game, and there's the instant death. So like the level 2 Magitech is just such a powerful command that in previous versions, if you had it, it would be almost like a game changer. So just to make it more of a, hey, do I really want to do Magitech Factory? Is it worth it?
Yeah, I really like that change to have it be, 2 separate tiers. The first tier being the elemental beams, which are really good in their own right? Like I said earlier, they are the same battle power as a tier 2 elemental spell. Ooh, there's an Atma weapon in a chest. So very nice for that experience egg user.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to clarify how the Atma weapon works, in case anyone's not familiar with it, is, it gains more power based on, I believe, your level, and then it loses if you're being at full health helps as well. So, you know, the higher level you are, the more health you have, the more damage it does. It scales very, very well with levels.
Yeah, so we got Sabin there with Runic, which is actually Celeste's normal ability, but we're going to swap the Yeti out of the party, as Keith does. So he's got his 5th character with Sabin. So we didn't really talk about... I guess this is our next character after Go-Go. So Sabin will unlock 5 additional checks. And they are the Collapsing House that I mentioned earlier, the Imperial Camp, where you run into Kefka poisoning people, the Barren Falls, where you throw yourself off the cliff, the Phantom Train, and Mount Cults. And I will correct that for you. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, and one thing to note about those checks is that in terms of the distance on the overworld, the Imperial Camp, the Imperial Camp is very close to the Phantom Train, which is then very close to the Barren Falls. And then, but when you beat Barren Falls, then you get transported to a completely different part of the map. So, you know, a common play will be to try to combine all those in a straightforward order, just to sort of save yourself a little bit of overworld travel time. It's a small optimization, but, you know, over time, those small optimizations all add up.
Yeah, comboing checks together is pretty popular. The less time you're spending on the airship, the more time you're spending actually killing things, right? So that's the way to do it.
Yeah, meanwhile on Goku's side, looks like in Narsh, probably going to, yes, fight the dragon here. This is World of Rune Narsh. There is a dragon available, which is very good levels, especially since I believe Goku has the experience egg, if I remember right. So that, you know, that really helps on his side. And then after this, presumably there's the Tritok Esper, which is the one, you know, at the very start of Vanilla Terra stares at. And then the one further down, Umaru has his own little check there. So, you know, this potentially, first one's an Esper/item, second one could be anything. So, you know, it's a very good start. Very good check here if you need levels.
Yeah, the dragons will also drop you a high tier item, so we'll see exactly what item he gets out of this check, as that was a dragon down for him. That is the Storm Dragon. So the dragons are shuffled amongst the dragons, so you won't find a boss in a dragon spot, and vice versa. But you won't find the same dragon twice, as that was an Aegis Shield, FYI, looking at his stream. So not a great reward, especially since we have access to buying flame shields, right? But he will continue on to the Tritok spot, which is actually not character gated, and this can only reward an Esper or an item.
Yeah, and since it can only reward an Esper or an item, it's usually a check that people will only do either if they desperately need Espers, or if, like in this case, they have Umaru, so they can basically combine, let's get this, then let's go do Umaru's check.
And his Guardian, Ick. Thankfully, I mean, we have access to Tech Missile. I don't know if we have Bolt 3 learned yet, because I know there are a couple of Tier 3 elemental spells, and wow, this is a nice fight for Keith here in Imperial Camp.
So Bolt 3 is on the Esper. I just saw Keith learn it. I don't know if Goku had that Esper equipped and has already learned it or not, though.
Yeah, so another thing about dragons is you get 50 magic points, right? Which means you basically learn almost any spell except for the ×1 learn rates there. Alexander the Esper is the reward there from Keith. And in case he runs into a user with rage, he did fight against Stray Cat, which is one of the more powerful physical build rages in the game. So we'll see if he eventually gets a character with Stray Cat, because that's always fun to do.
Yeah, it looks like Keith is going to combo these checks like we were talking about earlier, going straight from there to the Phantom Train. One nice thing about the Phantom Train is you actually can get the reward right at the start. I mean, you still have to finish the check, but you can very easily see what it is. So if it's something where he's like, you know what, you know, like a item or something that he doesn't want, he can just bail right out and saves you a bunch of time.
All right, so that was an Esper there, the Bismarck Esper for Goku. So that's his 4th, I think, although it's hard to see his tracker. Stay tuned if I screwed up counting. And hey, there's a character that can use our fixed dice that we found. I would have to imagine he goes right in the party for saving. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and Setzer, how do you feel about finding Setzer as your 6th character like this, like in terms of his checks?
Yeah, so Setzer's checks are very heavily skewed. Actually, they're not very heavily skewed, but he has 3 different checks, one of which is Search the Skies, which is essentially finding the Doomgaze spot instead of manually looking for it. So that will reward only an Esper or an item. And then you have the Kolingen in either world. That's a check that you don't have to fight any fights for. And then his Daryl's Tomb check is one where you could read what the reward is on the inscription of the tomb before you fight the fight. So his checks are very fast, and you could pretty much know what you're getting out of all of them, right? Because you can go into the inn and see what it is. You can go through the tomb and see what that is. So that's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's sort of my thought as well. The other thing in terms of, we were mentioning keeping checks together, the airship check you can do whenever because it's just clicking on the airship. Mm-hmm. And then Kolingen Inn is right next to, if you go in the world of Rune, it's right next to Daryl's Tomb. So those work very nicely together as well. Yeah, also, if you have any interest in going in the Coliseum, which these runners seem like they've more or less have what they need, so probably not at this point. But if you have any interest in checking the Coliseum, you're also right there for that too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would have advocated probably for a Coliseum play earlier with Umaro in the party, right? You mentioned how good Umaro is in regular battles against regular fights. Meanwhile, that is Esper number 6 for Goku. I think that was Odin, because Tirado, I think, was one of the other ones from earlier. So he gets another Esper, and oh god! It's Magimaster at the end of the Phantom Train. Luckily, we do have access to Tech Missile. And we do have that Pearl Rod, remember, we're holding on to. So, if you're fighting Magimaster and you don't have access to Berserk, which can nullify Magimaster, what you should do is exactly what Keith is doing here. Hit him with your hardest elemental attack first, and then hit him with all your defense ignoring or non-elemental stuff, like Tech Missile, like Fixed Dice. I'm going to try to gamble and mimic this Pearl Rod. So what Magimaster does is he casts Wall Change, which basically nullifies 6 different elements. He is immune to one, or rather he gets damaged by one and absorbs the other. So it's a 1 in 8 chance that the Pearl Rod would actually do any damage. This is going to be a bit of a difficult fight, although we have the tools to do it. Magimaster still hits hard here, Arista.
Yeah, he definitely does, and it's also one of the things, it's just hard to... Fortunately, he does not have his Ultima counter if anybody's thinking about vanilla, so that is a flag that you can specifically turn off just because otherwise it's miserable, but he still has all sorts of nasty magic.
Yeah, because unlike in the vanilla game, you're not guaranteed to find the Life 3 spell, right? So if he casts Ultima upon death, normally in the vanilla game, you'd use Life 3 to re-rage your party. But if we don't have that in Seed, then that essentially makes this pretty bad. So Goku is up at Lone Wolf. That was a Valiant Knife that Lone Wolf had, so he let that drop. Let's see what this Imp will give him. Well, I don't know if the box will pop up, but it was an Ice Shield. So, I think I'd rather have the Valiant Knife at this point. But hey, those are both good items, and he could always go get the Valiant Knife in the World of Ruin if he really wanted to.
I would be surprised, since Goku has already done World of Ruin Umaru's checks, I would be surprised if you, that'd be pretty far to go out of your way just for a Valiant Knife. Especially since we're not really sure, since we don't have lock, we're not really sure anybody can actually equip it, so
absolutely
that'd be quite a risk.
Yeah, it is. You can thankfully warp out of the Moogle's Cave in the World of Ruin, but it is a long walk. And yikes. Keith down to just one member here. Can Mog eke it out against Magimaster? Yes, he does! Very nicely done. Although I'd like to have more party members up when I kill Magimaster, because he gives 50 magic points as well. Getting through that fight is the real victory, I think, to be honest there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I did notice is that was Bolt 3, so at least the guy who survived, Mog, had the ideal Esper.
Yeah, so it looks like Keith is doing sort of the comboing thing that you're talking about, although he did come down here to get a refresher. So Barren Falls allows you to get a heal when you jump off of it. I think Keith was out of Phoenix Downs. That's why he couldn't get the rest of his party up. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and then also, I think on his way, Keith also did the unequip to get his stuff back from Sabin.
Yeah, that makes sense. In case you missed that, that was Welk at Kefka Narsh. It was not a character here either. And at Kefka Narsh, you do have to split up your party into two. So Goku electing to leave Umaro behind. That was a Genji glove. So yet another dead check here in Narsh. So he's 2 for 2 with dead checks in Narsh. That's got to feel bad. And here's the brand new check, the Moogle defense, and that looks like Cyan is the reward.
Yes, that looks like Mr. Thou.
So yeah, we were talking about Cyan before and his dream netting all 8 sword techs. He also has access to the Doma Siege check where you fight leader, and Mount Zozo where he writes love letters. Bit of a dichotomy there. The true yin and yang that is Cyan.
Yeah, and so the Doma Dream is 3 potential checks, but I believe one of them is guaranteed progression. But it's also a fairly lengthy check. So if you don't have sword tech, this late in the seed, it might be something where you're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that. His other checks, however, are very nice because Mount Zozo gets you a dragon, which with that experience egg would be probably pretty nice for Goku. And then the other check, the Doma Siege, is just super, super quick. You just land there and walk out and you're right there.
Yeah, especially because it allows you to recruit the new party member if you're so inclined, right at the start of the fight, versus waiting to the end. Meanwhile, it is Tritalk. Thankfully, we have Tech Missile and Fire Magic, so this one's not going to be a problem. Keith, meanwhile, heading to Sabin's check, the Collapsing House, and you are correct. The Cyan's Dream, the only guaranteed progression is at the second part of that check. Parts 1 and 3 could offer you items in addition to the potential for an Esper. And speaking of Espers, Keith buys the Zen Thief one there. He's got 40 grand to shell out, but not 40 grand to go get the experience egg. So question for you, Arista. Are you going to, if you see that there's an experience egg for sale, do you always just go back and get it no matter what? Or is it the case where you're like, well, it's kind of late in the seed for me, I'd rather spend my money on progression instead of experience? I don't know if you're talking to Arista or your mic cut out or...
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
That's okay.
So I would typically, at least, if there's any way to buy it the first time I'm there, like even selling like elixirs or X potions or things like that, I will do it. I will also probably keep in mind, what's there. Katana Soul, by the way, is a lot of money. But it's also something at some point, like Keith is 50 minutes in, he's probably not going to fight a lot of bosses from here out. So I can understand being like, well, it's probably a little late for going out of the way for it.
Meanwhile, that is another use of Magitech here, Confuser. So we'll get some vanilla speedrun strats where we confuse Katana Soul to Self-Slayer Edge, and that's that fight done. We will get an offering for that Atma weapon that we picked up, or the fixed ice that he's currently rocking. And he'll also grab a ton of money. Meanwhile, it is Doma Siege for Goku. This is not a character. It is, however, an endgame boss, Inferno. Seen some nasty bosses so far. Guardian, Inferno, Magimaster, Goddess. Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, basically, there's Atma and Doom are the only couple that you'd really, really be terrified of. Maybe the
Doomgaze,
Stooges, depending on.
Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so since bosses are shuffled and not random, that means that there's only one spot we could see Inferno, and that's at this spot here, which is good for Goku because he knows that he's not going to encounter it in Kefka's Tower. Right, so you could sort of adjust your strategies based on that. Keith grabbing another Esper there out of the Collapsing House. So a nice little 2-for-1 stop here with both the Zen Thief and the Collapsing House. You really want to combo your checks back to back together. That's always nice to see.
Yeah, and if I'm Keith right now at enough characters and only 2 Espers, I am prioritizing all the quick checks and all the peekable checks. So, this Colon Gin, the peekable Daryl's Tomb right here. I don't know if did they do, anything else that's like super quick. Search the Skies.
Search the Skies is super quick and will potentially yield an Esper. That's Carbuncle there, so nice one for Keith. Goku, meanwhile, picking up another Esper, and with 5 characters and 7 Espers, he's heading into Cyan's Dream. And I love this play because he could potentially be in Go mode at the end of Cyan's Dream, and he already knows where a couple of dead checks were, right, from all that stuff that he did in Narsh. So the likelihood of this also being all dead checks is not going to be as high, although you never know. I just jinxed it. I'm sorry in advance.
Yeah, and on key screen, buying those enhancers. Enhancer is secretly a very nice weapon because, it's got low attack power, so it's one of those things, if you're playing casually, you'd be like, why am I even spending $10,000 on this? But it also gives +7 magic power, and magic power is kind of the god stat here in Worlds Collide.
Yeah, especially if you're using magic-heavy builds like we are, right? We've seen Tier 3 elemental spells. We've seen Magitech, which is based off of your magic power stat. And here we see Keith searching the sky while Goku fights another Ultros. This time it's Ultros 2 that we had from the Opera House, and it's already gone. Meanwhile, some flying meteors. Some flying flame eaters. Very interesting. That was an Esper, by the way, for Goku, so he's up to 8. And this part of the check can be, or is guaranteed to be, progression. So we'll see if he sees an NPC or if he sees a character. That's really hard to tell.
Yeah, I think for Goku, it would be best if he saw a character here, just because, at that point, he's still got a few free checks. I don't know if Goku has been to the Zen Thief, but that's always a super quick check that we fortunately know is an Esper.
Yeah, I think he peaked it in World of Balance, and it was too much money because it was 65,000 in World of Balance, whereas it's only 40 in the World of Brewing. So we'll get another chance to see what this reward is on Goku's screen in the next cutscene sequence thing. This is the only thing about Cyan's Dream is these cutscenes in the second part take a few minutes, which can bleed the time here, and it makes the check seem a lot longer than it actually is, for sure. Keith taking out the Search the Sky spot, and another glowing stone. Always nice to see it. That's Go mode for Keith. I didn't see what his levels looked like.
Based on his health, I don't think they're great.
That's an imp sprite there for Goku, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, he's high 20s, and I don't know what Gogo is, but he's dead, so he might even be lower, maybe mid 20s. I might take a dragon here. Yeah, at 26 to 29, that's super risky.
Especially, as we mentioned before, there was an experience egg for sale in this seed, and Keith did not follow up on it. Also doesn't have any relics on his characters, which is never a good thing. But yeah, in this case, so one of the strategies, as you mentioned, is to take dragons. You will increase the scaling of the enemies, right? Every time you kill a dragon, you increase enemy scaling by 2. I would go for a spicy play here. Since I'm so low levels, what I would do is I would try to get Kefka Tower skip by either trying to get Espers or trying to get characters. So this way I am not only leveling up my characters, but I go right into the statue skip instead of walking through the tower. Now, I will do that sometimes when I'm very low level when I unlock KT. If I'm at like, like 31, 32, 33, I'll overload the party and do, the Inferno spot and the dragon and then warp out. But Keith is just way too low to even do that. Meanwhile, 2 more Espers for Goku out of the Dream. So Dream is a 3 for 3, but unfortunately, he doesn't need Espers. He needs characters now. But that also means he only has 2 more Espers for Skip. So something to keep our eyes on as well.
Yeah, and one other thing to note is that, we were talking about Keith needing levels, and we're seeing Keith, take an extra dragon here for levels. Goku, I believe, seems to, not just because of the experience egg, but Goku seems to have more of his characters surviving battles. Keith has had a lot of characters unfortunately dying. Yeah. So I think Goku's levels might be a little higher and might be in better shape overall, once he gets Go mode. Sort of catch up just on overall kill speeds.
Yeah, remember, on top of that, he ran into a lot of dead checks in Narsh, right? Between the Mughal defense and Kefkat Narsh and Lone Wolf, so that also disinhibit it. And he will get his Go mode here at Zone Eater, right? Because this is where Sabin is. Let me see if I can try and get back Keith. Meanwhile, you can opine on what's going to happen next.
Yeah, so Goku is going to find another character here. The one thing, like I said, I think Goku, just overall levels-wise, is in a slightly better spot. Keith getting that dragon is going to help, but, we'll see. I mean, he might, even with that dragon, because, of course, experience that you get from enemies scales with the enemy's levels. So even though that dragon probably got him a few levels, he might still be, probably low 30s, maybe 33 at most, probably. So even that's, it's doable, but that's still pretty low. So it could still be an idea for a play, like for what Schwantz is talking about, where you want to go and maybe overload the right party and just knock out a couple bosses, something like that.
Yeah, at least this way you feel like you're in Kefka's Tower and you're making progress, right? Because the Inferno spot and all of the boss gauntlet spots don't increase scaling because they're not considered checks, right? In Worlds Collide, a check is anything that can reward either an Esper, an item, or a character. And dragons, since they reward items, are considered checks. Same goes for the Toilet Atma spot. Since it rewards an item, it's considered a check. Keith heading into the tower, though. Let's see what he does here. Is he going to overload Party 3, or is he going to split us up? It looks like he's splitting up.
It looks like he's splitting up, but one thing to note... Okay, he fixed it. One thing I was going to say is it looks like he's going to put Gogo in the center party with, like, Sabin, who's not super useful. And the problem with Gogo, he's fine as one of your final 4, but since his big thing is Mimic and using only the magic that everybody else has, Gogo really can't be your primary party member. Like, he needs to be part of your group of 2 good guys.
Right. Or if, the only exception to that is if you learn Bum Rush and you put Blitz on Gogo, or if you have a Great Rage and you put Rage on Gogo, or Throw, right? That's the only exception, but you're absolutely right. Gogo has been mimicking Magitech all seed, so it makes sense that Keith is deciding to continue that here. And we'll see what Goku decides to do in Go mode. He is actually in the Opera House, so he's going to take on another dragon as well. Maybe he does not think his levels are appropriate, although we know, being the omniscient narrators here, that his levels are actually higher than Keith's are at this point. But hey, more levels is never a bad thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking, Setzer's level is 29, so I assume the other people in Keith's party are probably, low 30s.
I think yeah.
Goku is probably a couple levels higher than that, but still very much, I think both runners are very much in that danger zone of like, hey, you could very easily take a wipe to a bad boss, or even just like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 of Kefka. So this is very much still a race.
Yeah, so thoughts on... So Goku is not, or it doesn't seem like he is going to do any additional checks with 10 Espers. If you have 10, Are you thinking about maybe doing skip, or are you still saying to yourself, it's an hour and 2 minutes into the seed, I got to get in the tower?
At an hour 2 minutes into the seed, I'm probably
with the levels like, I'm sorry to cut you off, with the levels like this, and you know, and having what you need.
I'm probably thinking I go to the tower, and if I want more levels, I find a way to get them in the tower. Just because, like, of the quick checks that, you know, are likely to reward espers, like the super quick ones, unfortunately, most of them don't actually have battles. You know, it's like, oh, we could go check, you know, the Colingen Inn. Well, nope, no battles. You can go check Search the Skies. It's like, well, that's one battle, but not a ton. You know, it's just like a lot of the checks aren't really Zen Thief, etc., Auction House. Right. You can get espers, but you're not going to get experience out of it.
Yeah, that's very true. And you know, once you do get skipped, you run the risk of not being scaled higher than your enemies at that point, right? So that's always one thing to keep in mind. He could have gone to Collapsing House into Zen Thief and been at 12, but we obviously know that, hindsight, 2020, all that. That's maybe what I would have done, but again, you have to know that that's there and know that you could do that. Because Sabin has a ton of checks available to him. And looking at his tracker, he's done everything besides Sabin checks except for Mount Zozo. So for him, he's probably like, a hit into some dead checks. Let's just go in the tower now. So interesting strategy. Level 46, by the way, on Mog.
Yeah, so this dueling Inferno spot here, I would guess Goku might be significant mid faster here.
Yeah, they're both going to fight it at the same time. Ugh. Chatternook. So we've sort of sped up Chatternook from the vanilla game, where it spends a lot more time in the demon form, or rather in the girl form than the demon form, and you can only kill the demon form. So that's something that we did to make this boss less annoying, but it is somehow still annoying.
Yeah, I'm just going to note, when you look at that health, Mog's health on Goku's side is literally double what Keith's health is. That gives you an idea of just how much level difference we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, I think Mog had that experience egg on all game for Goku, because he had, he bought it. Interestingly, though, Mog's damage output is higher for Keith than it is for Goku. I think that's the difference between Fire 3 and Tech Missile. Right, since Chatternook is weak to fire, it does double damage, so... One of those things where Tech Missile may not always be your best option. Interesting. That also might come down to relics and gear as well, right? If you've got earrings on, that certainly helps.
Yeah, it looks like Keith got an unfortunately timed transformation back to the girl, so lost a few seconds there.
Yep, that allows Goku to get out in front of him a little bit here. And yeah, even though the damage is higher, or it seemed like it was higher, Goku getting through that fight first. Thank God Chad is done. One of the more annoying bosses to see in the seed. Not only because of, like I mentioned, the whole transformation time thing, but we'll just counter everything with lightning spells. And unless you have a Thunder Shield, which I don't think we do, we have a Rage Ring, right, which will nullify lightning, but most of the shields we see are Ice Shields and Flame Shields, so... Big yuck. Keith debating it, and he's gonna take the dragon here. I'm not sure I like this play at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a tough spot, because I completely understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But you're also only getting experience on two members, and also, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully he pulls it through, but
yeah.
Blue Dragon is not the one you want to see, because it's surprisingly dangerous of the dragons.
Yeah, Blue Dragon, a lot of AoE water attacks, and not only is there not a lot of resistance to water, but remember, Keith has probably got Flame Shields on. And with a Flame Shield, water attacks deal double damage. So that's probably why we saw so much damage come out from the blue dragon, but a couple of bolt threes will hopefully do the trick. Now, the thing about taking the dragon here is that he's not getting his XP to his entire party, right? He's only getting it to both Mog and Gogo, which is nice if they're your sort of carry characters in the sea, which I think they probably are, based on, you know, Tech Missile and the magic spells that he's got. But I'd rather see you do a dragon with your entire team. Same thing with that Inferno spot, right? If you do Inferno and the dragon with your entire team, you've just leveled up all of your party members, and the fight goes much faster on top of that. The only thing that you lose is that little bit of walking time through KT as well. And that's what we're doing now, walking through KT, yay. So at this point, I guess we should talk about how to play the game. FF6worldscollide.com is the link to our website, and there's a link to our Discord where you can interact with us in the Discord server. I promise we try to be helpful most of the time. So come check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I only started picking up this game about mid last year, and the community is very, very welcoming to newbies, very, very helpful. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of resources to, hey, I don't know boss weaknesses because it's been 30 years since I played Final Fantasy IV. Oh, hey, there's a nice spreadsheet that basically lists all the bosses and exactly what they're weak to, what they absorb, etc. All sorts of things like that to really help newbies figure out, just get used to what's going on.
Yeah, because even though this game is approaching, 30 years old now? It's 28, 29 years old now. We're still discovering interesting tidbits about it all the time. Like, for instance, I didn't know that Umaro could grab a character that's grabbed by the tentacles out of the tentacle's hand and throw it at some other tentacle. That's something I've never seen before it happen today. So it's always great to see all these crazy things, and that's why I love watching races and whatnot. Ew. Is this Marshall and Tyrannosaur for Goku as the boss?
Yes, this is Marshall and Tyrannosaur. So one change that was made recently is, if you're familiar with the vanilla game, Marshall, who you probably forgot even existed because he's that unimportant, normally comes with just 2 Lobos. He's, I believe, the Moogle defense check super early in the game. Mm-hmm. And so it's a joke there, but in order to make it at least somewhat challenging, the monsters are now randomized. There's I think 10 or 11 different options they can be.
Ooh, and that's not what you want to see right off the bat. Net is essentially stop, and the only way to get rid of stop is with dispel. So it looks like Keith is going to have to do this alone. So I know you can use instant death on Marshall, but I don't think you can on the dinosaurs.
No. Some of the items some of the enemies you can. I don't think dinosaurs are one of them. But also one thing to note is I don't know if you noticed, but Mog and Gogo are both completely out of magic. So at least for Mog, you have Magitech, but oof, it's not really, you want to walk in dry on magic.
Yeah, let me try and get Keith back here.
And it does look, I'm going to assume Goku found his way past Tyrannosaurs and Marshall. Looks like he did, fighting Doom, which is one of the vanilla statue bosses, so it is quite difficult. Not exactly the best boss you want to see, but with the kind of levels Goku has, probably okay. And that water element ineffectual. So about halfway through the battle, give or take, depending on HP, Doom casts a force field, and one of the things he does is create some resistance to some random elements. So the fact you saw that shows it's halfway there, and this appears to be Doom just dying. So looks like Goku made it through with 4,000 health left on Mog. Very, very, very easy.
Yeah, and unfortunately Keith does take the wipe there, which means he goes all the way back to the Inferno spot after not saving, so he's going to have to walk all the way back, which is real tough because Goku just took down his second boss, Gauntlet boss. That was a French vanilla Doom as well.
Yeah, and let's just pause to talk about how terrible the relics apparently are. The fact that you're equipping a mithril glove, which is just... those are useless. And that's somehow still one of the best things they've got. Because I think Keith has one equipped too.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, it's sort of the Schrodinger's shop, right? You don't know what's in all of the shops around the world because they are mixed up and scrambled. And if you don't have to go to towns, you don't need to be in the shops. And with this set of characters, right, we have maybe Kolingin, which is where Setzer's stuff was, to Zen, which is where Sabin's stuff was. But other than that, we're not really going to be in very many towns. Narsh for Mog. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate that we didn't go to a lot of towns. And with Magitech early on in the seed and Elemental Shields and Experience Eggs, you really just want to go, go, go. And that's kind of a byproduct of not doing your shopping early in the seed because you have a lot of offense. I know that I'm very much a victim of that. If I find a lot of goodies right away in my initial looting route, I will short circuit my shopping very early on in the seed.
You just want to go, go, go with go-go? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, wake me up and then we'll go. Unfortunately, that can backfire on you if you don't have the goods here. And it looks like we have Funbaba as one of the other boss statue spots, and this is not good for Goku. He's only got one of his two characters up here. And I'm going to try and get Keith's stream back again. Give me 1 second. All right, there we go. So the good news for Keith is he knows exactly what's at that spot. That spot. So he could kind of plan in advance for what that boss is going to essentially do to him, right? So hopefully he won't be stuck in the same precarious scenario. It was rather unlucky that, you know, the net spell was cast on his higher offense character. Meanwhile, Goku's starting the Funbaba fight again.
Yeah, I mean, I've not been able to really keep track of sort of what Cyan's abilities are on Goku's side. What's Goku rolling with there on Cyan?
Capture and fixed dice. So one of the things that we did do in our latest update for the game, so the game is currently in active, I would say semi-active development, where we do have people that are adding new things and fixing things all the time. One of the things we did do is capture has some bugs associated with it with certain weapons, and fixed dice is one of them, where in the vanilla game, if you try to do capture with fixed dice, it will always miss. We did correct that. We quote-unquote fixed the glitch in the Worlds Collide version of it. So that's really nice to see. But it's just a single fixed dice, as he did not find the Katana Soul that Keith did with the offering. And here you'll see the power of the offering, at least against Funbaba, to do multiple attacks in one turn. Although he's got to be careful here with Funbaba always counterattacking everything with lightning, similar to Chatternook.
Yeah, so right there you can see basically Keith one-shot Funbaba, whereas Goku had to reset, and might still be going on the fight right here. So that really is the power of the offering, as you said. And the one nice thing here, okay, looks like Goku got through it as well. The one nice thing here for Keith is that this also gets a save point, so if he's at all worried about that Tyrannosaur fight or what might potentially be after it, he gets a chance to save up.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it was interesting that Keith decided, instead of fighting the Martial Tyrannosaur, he quite literally rolled the dice to see what was at the Doom spot to fight that. But it did pay out for them, and they've got 3 more bosses to fight, whereas Goku just has the one. And we're going to see from Keith what this boss is going to be here.
Yeah, and so this is I mean, okay, so it's tunnel armor, so that's a joke. So let's talk a little bit about Final Kefka, which we're about to see very shortly. Tunnel armor, you just blast him with lightning and he vanishes, basically.
He's gonna die right here.
So,
ooh, I thought that was gonna be a one-shot. Disappointing.
So the big things you generally want for Final Kefka are, so instant death is very nice to have because on tier, there are basically 3 tiers, then Kefka himself. Mm-hmm. On tier 1 and tier 2, there are enemies that there's at least one enemy who can be instantly killed with some form of instant death. So that's Doom, that's Xfer from the Magitech, something like that. So they both have that. The other things that are very nice to have, so Siren or a mute spell are very nice to have for tier 2 because there's an enemy called Magic who just sort of spams annoying magic. Not super dangerous per se, just takes a lot of animation time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then the other thing, the most important, is what we call calmness protection, which is tier 3, because there is, when you kill the final enemy of tier 3, he decides to just straight up try to murder 1 or 2 of your characters with something called calmness, which if it hits, it just straight up kills you. So the best option is something like Fenrir, which I know Goku has. I don't know if Keith has. Let's see here.
Doesn't look like it.
Other options include Golem, which basically you want anything that protects you from a physical attack, because that's what it is. So right. Fenrir, which gives you image. Golem, which gives you, a hand that blocks stuff. Phantom, which gives you vanish status, which works but can be removed very easily. Or just, put on some evade gear and hope like heck the dice work out for you.
Yeah, so getting a little bit luckier this time was Keith getting the stop spell on Go-Go instead of Mog. So we'll see how this works. Merton is very nice with flame shields because that basically means your party gets healed while the enemies get killed. And Goku is on the switches 1:19:20 based on his screen there. And there it is, just as I said it. It's like watching a Paranormal Activity movie where you just get flashes of scenes. You have to fill in the blanks with your mind,
Oh, I mean, I just thought you had very, very good foresight. You knew what was going to happen before it did.
I mean, one of the secrets of a good tracker is you're constantly watching everything. So I'm watching his stream on his own stream because it comes through actually way better than it does on the SpeedGaming app that we've got here. And yeah, French Vanilla Statue Doom. So yeah, we've seen a lot of bad enemies this season. Thankfully, though, with Merton, this shouldn't be a problem.
It's not, because the nice thing about Merton is it does a ton of damage, which you can see. In this case, it's healing his own party. And then also, subtly, it's a very fast animation. So it actually saves you a decent amount of time as opposed to like some of the slower stuff. Like if he was throwing fixed dice, you might be doing similar damage, but it would take a lot longer.
Yes, very true. So yeah, we do have access to instant death in the form of Xfer. We do have Siren. And, Goku, you said, has Fenrir as calmness protection. I wonder where the heck you picked that up from. Maybe it must have been Yeti stuff, because I don't think Keith did any of the Yeti stuff.
No, Keith did not do, like, any of the runes and Narsh, so yeah. That's most likely where it came from.
Alright, so Doom has 2 actual phases here. This is the second phase where he casts the Reflect status and the Image status. Thankfully, Tech Missile doesn't care about either one of those things, or whatever element he decides to nullify here, so this should be pretty quick and easy. I'm guessing he ran out of MP, and that's why he switched over to Tech Missile instead of Merton. Tech Missile, very powerful, and we're seeing it here. Although, like we said, if our runners had some earrings to work with, they would actually increase their magic output by 25 or up to 50%, depending upon how many earrings they wore. So, your relics are pretty important for
you. Yeah, because earrings, like you said, they do that. The other thing that works similarly is hero rings, which are actually an earring, plus also does 25% extra physical damage. So, if you've got a character who does maybe they've got like an Illumina equipped, which is both physical damage and potentially magical damage, something like that. Hero rings are very nice for that too.
All right, so tier 2 for Goku. He will have access to Siren and Instant Death. So yeah, in runs where you don't have access to Mute, Magic isn't really all that dangerous. He's just extremely annoying. Like in a recent practice seed that I played, I didn't have Mute, and he cast Slow 2 on my entire party, so that meant everybody was going slow. He cast Life 3 on some other part of the boss, so you had to kill it twice. It's just, it makes for an extremely annoying and very long sequence of events here. So, thankfully, both of our runners have access to something that will take out Magic. So we'll see if Keith can catch up. It's going to be a daunting task considering he doesn't have the levels that Goku does, but he does have access to the offering with the fixed dice, which, yes, it will take longer as an animation, but it also has 4 times the chance of doing more damage, right? I'd much rather roll with the offering fixed dice than just the fixed dice by itself, just because it gives you that much more potential to hit a good roll. So we can also use Break against the long arm, and it looks like Keith has found it there, and it looks like that's what he's going to do. Our Polarity is another one of those troll tactics, which requires you to reset the rows of all your characters. Thank you for wasting my time, Tier 1. Appreciate it. So the head is actually weak to fire, and if it's left alive at the end, it will death counter with Quake. So Keith has to be careful here when using the fixed dice offering, because you cannot target which target you want with the fixed dice and the offering. And Merton hitting everything means that we're going to kill stuff at the same time. Thankfully, it hurts head a whole heck of a lot more because of the fire magic in it, but he's got to be careful here of these dice rolls. Because they're doing a lot more than what Magitech is actually doing right now. But there you see the weak dice rolls coming out. Except for that one. I spoke too soon. Yeah, at this point, if I was Keith, I would stop attacking with Setzer until I kill the head. Alright, so now the head's dead. By the way, I don't know if you're talking, if you're just relaxing. Alright, tier 2 for Keith. That surely seemed like it went a lot faster than Goku's tier 2, although it's hard to tell, like I said. Both are currently on tier 2 at the moment. And based on what I see on Goku black screen, it isn't a black screen, but it is, I think he has just magic left to deal with, based on who he's attacking. So we'll see if Keith can catch up with his combination of Mute plus instant death and stuff like that. So Tiger is one of the parts of the second tier. So we just got rid of tools with instant death, and we've nullified magic with Mute. So Break actually won't work on tools. That only works on tier 1. Tiger, which is another part of this boss, is weak to ice, and Hit is the blue guy. He'll do 10 hits as his death counter. So we just want to make sure we have enough health to tank the 10 hits. Especially in Keith's case, where his HP is a bit lower than normal because of his lower levels. Goku up to tier 3 here. Ooh, double froze. But the good thing about Merton is that it will thaw out the party because it is a fire spell that does hit your team. And that'll get the party going. So the only way to unfreeze yourself from the frozen status like that is to use a fire spell. There we go. Sets are doing some nice dice rolls there in a Tiger. So we'll contrast that with Goku, who only had one fixed dice at a time. So sometimes his Cyan was throwing out, you know, in the hundreds for his dice rolls there. Here comes Tiger back again. Thankfully, S-Cross, even though it looks like a water type of spell, it's actually a fire spell. You know what I thought was funny? I think, like, later games in the Squaresoft library, like Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger, I know they borrow a lot of animations from this game. And there is that one attack in Super Mario RPG. It's kind of like the water geyser one, where it starts, you know, bubbling up with water bubbles, and then it just does a big burst of white onto the screen like a circular one. I have to think that they borrowed part of the S-Cross animation from that, and you'll see like the Madeline Esper Summon Chaos Swing kind of looks like, you know, a different version of the ultimate lightning spell in that game. I think that Chrono uses, called Luminaire. And then obviously there's Grand Train and Dark Matter are very similar type animation. So I always thought that that was really cool how that happens, you know. So anyway, I think Arusta is back now finally, as Keith has taken out, it looks like, magic here, because the dispels are coming out. Here comes the 10 hits. So he's going to be on to tier 3. Unfortunately, Goku has made it all the way up to tier 4 against Kefka.
Yeah, it looks like Goku has made it up with his party intact and in good health. So I believe at least Keith found a Mega Elixir. I believe it was in a chest, so I guess Goku probably has one as well. So I think Goku might be in a good spot here. There's also, I believe, Capture.
So Keith found the Mega Elixir from the Phantom Train, which was Magimaster. You didn't get to see it unless you know how to watch a flipbook, but since I'm watching his stream, he actually just used Capture from Cyan rather, to steal a Mega Elixir off of Kefka. So that's a nice swag strat there from Goku that we unfortunately couldn't see, but you know, I describe it to you so that this way you know that if you're ever stuck in that situation against Kefka, if you have Steal or Capture, you can steal a Mega Elixir off of Final Kefka for the following round, which he's now using, which is great heads-up play.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, it's not just the heal, but it's also very nice, because usually if you've got a magic-heavy party, this is about the time when you want a magic refill anyways, so it tends to work out really well on both ends.
Yeah, totally agree. That's the worst. To me, that's the worst part of this fight, is running out of magic.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so this is a race against the other people in the pod, and Goku right now is at 130 and change in his time. The first place finisher in the clubhouse right now is Jamie with 135.45. So that's the time to beat to get first place this week. There is a second place time of 136.14. So very close between first and second so far. So we'll see if Goku has what it takes to pull out the first place here. Meanwhile, Yick, the Windy Wind, taking Keith's entire party down. Thankfully, the Merton will not only damage the boss, but it will heal his party. So that's a great call for Merton here.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, shout out to Jamian, who is currently in chat, saying that Goku's making him sweat a little bit.
Sweat no more. Goku has finished 1:32:09. So that is his official time. He is in first place for this pod so far. So that's very nice for him. Let's see if we could talk to him a little bit about his run. He's usually in the commentary booth, but tonight he decided to put on his racing shoes, which is always nice to see. So Goku will get, or is currently in line to get the 9 points, which if we look at the standings in the Tonic E division, currently it is Goku in 4th place, so he'll leapfrog over Jamian perhaps, depending upon how he finishes, but if Goku is 1 and Jamian is 2, Jamian will still have a 1-point lead over Goku after this week. And speaking of which, we are here joined by Goku. GG's, congratulations on your first place victory so far in your Ultra League seed.
Oh, thank you. That was a crazy seed. I mean, starting off with the Magitech Mog and Celeste at the very start. Oh, but
yeah. So talk to us about your strategy. You see Magitech Mog and Celeste. Do you immediately make a beeline right for that Magitech factory with the upgrade as the reward for beating Magitech 3?
So I wanted to get my levels first, and I saw a good spot to do them as soon as I got everything I needed at the Opera House, and then immediately dived right in so I can get that Magitech upgrade. Oh, that was a good one though.
Yeah, so talk to us a little bit about, how the seed played out for you. You had 4 characters before you got your 5th, and you had a ton of esters. I think you had like 6 or 7 before you ended up with your 5th character. Were you getting frustrated by, the dead checks on top of Narsh, and were you really looking for that character there hard, or are you just saying to yourself, you know what, the character will come eventually and maybe I'll get skipped here?
I was trying to think, okay, so let's do Mog, his checks, and then I saw Cyan immediately Doma, Siege, Dream, and I'm like, you know what, my gut instinct is telling me that the last character is that Zone Eater. I don't know why. And I was right. Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes the Chancellors beat you, and other times you beat the Chancellors, right? So.
Yeah. But GG's to Keith Rocks when he finishes. Great guy.
Yeah, so he might even come in 2nd place here, because like I said, the 2nd place time at the moment is 1:35:45, and he's getting awfully close here. So we'll see if he decides to get it off before Goner, as he's throwing his shields now that have protected him from Merton all seed. So one interesting thing that you did very early in the game, you saw the experience egg in the relic shop in World of Balance South Figaro, and then you went back and bought it, whereas Keith did not. He spent his money on things like flame shields and other things to help his party out. Did you see experience egg and you're thinking immediately, I'm buying this, doesn't matter?
Yes. So I said, okay, I have Magitech, I have the ability to get its full upgrade, and it's on Mog, so I'm going to throw a experience egg on Mog at the very start when I get my levels, and then that's going to be paving my way for when I get the Tech Missile at Magitech Factory.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Arusti, you have questions for Goku while we got him here?
No, I mean, I think the one thing that you guys covered was just watching the race. That experience egg ended up being the biggest difference. Just you came in, Keith actually got into go mode a little before you did, but you had much higher levels. So how are you feeling? Like, I saw you did take the Opera House Dragon, which Keith also took. How are you feeling entering Kefka's Tower that made you decide, hey, let's get a few more levels here?
So when I was going there, I'm like, I don't know what to expect going to Kefka's Tower. Cyan is the one I'm really worried about. So we're gonna get some levels onto him because he's got fixed dice and that's about it. So I thought, hey, let's get those levels and go ahead and head straight into Kefka's Tower, and that's basically what my mind put on there.
Yeah, so while we were chatting, Keith does finish 1:16:15, which is actually 1 second behind Daragrin of his 1:16:14 time. So we're definitely going to have to go to an official retime, I think, to figure out who gets into third place in this particular seed. So we're joined by Keith. Congratulations, Keith. GG's on your run.
GG's.
Thanks.
So before we get to you, Keith, one last thing I wanted to mention, Goku. I really like the heads-up play of you not having a Mega Elixir, because you, unlike Keith, did not fight Magimaster at Phantom Train. You had to use Capture in order to steal a Mega Elixir off of Kefka for Fallen Ones. So nice heads-up play there. Really, really like to see that as well.
Yeah, so I stole some elixirs off of some of the other tiers as well as an app weapon that I never really used, but...
Yeah, it's always, the swag strats are always fun, so always good to see. Any other final thoughts before we get to Keith here?
No, just GG's, and a pleasure running this race. I was excited to do this. And be sure to follow the other runner and our commentators, and join the Discord and all that.
All right, well, thank you for the plug, Goku, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you again for volunteering. Appreciate it, and we'll see you later.
Yep, see you.
All right, so we are on to Keith, who you did have a really, really nice time as well. 1:36:15, I believe, was your time. So only a few minutes behind Goku there. I think what the difference was between your two runs was that experience egg, where Goku picked it up very early on, and I don't think you ever went back to get it, did you?
No, once I left, I didn't get a ton of money, but I didn't want to go all the way back just for it. So
yeah, that made sense.
I mean, otherwise, the wipe on Marshall was really the time loss.
yeah, that's quite unfortunate, because normally the Marshall boss is not that bad, but just so happened to freeze your best character there, and you were stuck with Gogo, who was neutered because they were using the Moogle Charm, and their stats are normally not as good anyway, so that's a bit unfortunate and unlucky. We will have to time you, though, against some of the other racers in your pod, because Daragrin actually finished 1:36:14, so we might have to see a little retime going on, which will be really cool to see both of your races side by side. So I'll stitch that up for a future piece of content there, so that'll be cool to see.
Wow. All right, that's good. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I kind of went fast. I tried. As soon as I kind of did a couple little things. I was hoping to find earrings. I could not find them anywhere, but I just kind of ran for once I saw the MTech and the on Mog and Celis, I'm like, well, I might as well just start running, and options were everywhere. I was gonna head to Narsh, but Saban's checks just kept popping up Espers, so just kind of ran with it.
Yeah, and thankfully you did not do Narsh at all, because there was a couple dead checks in Mog's path at both Lone Wolf and Kefka at Narsh. However, there was some sweet, sweet Calmless protection hiding in the World of Ruin Narsh at either Tritalk or Yeti. I don't remember which one. But your Mog did come in clutch with the block, so it didn't matter much anyway.
If you Mog throughout that whole tower, even when they netted him, they couldn't even hurt him. No one was hurting him. He just the snow muffler he was wearing and nothing was touching him. Like, it kept doing 0 no matter who was hitting him. So I was hoping that was the target, because I'm like, he'll block whatever comes his way.
Rooster, you got any questions for Keith here?
Yeah, my only question is, so when you finished up your checks, you were at, I believe, level 26 to 29, and so you took the Opera House Dragon. We had talked about it a little bit in the booth. Was there any thought, had you had any thoughts about, hey, I might want even more than just this one dragon, like overloading one party to get more experience, something like that?
There was a thought, but the old like, this is, going back towards the beginning of the game. Like, 30 was like pretty good to go in, and it used to be a lot more common. People are a little more cautious, but if you're confident enough, like with the dice, Celis with her magic, and even the other two, like if you're confident enough that you've got something going, just run for it. Don't bother wasting time just doing the same thing. By the end of the bosses, I was at mid 30s, which is more than enough for the final for me. So we were chatting. Actually, we had a chat last night, a bunch of us, about it. Jack being one who was in there, and he's a big proponent of just going. So I was like, that's how we used to do a lot more. So I was like, let's just go for it. And aside from Marshall, who has just been throwing me this whole season, I've been getting a lot of bad Marshall fights. But other than that, I was fine with it. I had Merton long since the beginning of the game, so plenty of attack. Calmness was the only one thing, and I was like, hopefully it's just one person, because I have enough offense to deal with it.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you there of just going, especially when we had access to some of the things, like we had instant death, right, in the form of Exfer. We had access to mute on as both a spell and with Siren, and how it used to be, the old standard was 7 characters and 10 espers, right? So our levels, the boss's levels, were even higher than they are now, and we still, tend to try and go in. So I could certainly see the I could certainly see the appeal there of going, especially with all the tools you had. So yeah.
I will say, if Search the Skies didn't pan out, I was sitting over Narsh for a reason. I was gonna go up and grab the dragon, and then try talk spot, and then possibly the cave. I didn't know if anyone was in there, and then it didn't need it, so I just healed up and went for it. But I did have that thought. I was like, well, I might as well at least try this, because I am low, but didn't need it.
Yeah, things did get a little dicey there in the final Kefka fight, where you just had Mog alive at one point, but you ended up recovering nicely and ended up taking down the clown there. So that was really nice to see you claw back there from the brink a little bit.
Yeah, the only other was just, that was very same as the Magi Master fight. That was tight. So.
Oh yeah.
But
I mean, yeah, you had the tools to do it, and I think you did it. You made the right plays. You used your Pearl Rod first, and then you tried all the other non-elemental stuff later. It just so happens that Magi Master is rude sometimes.
Yeah, I mean it went fine. It's just even in the final battle, it's just you just don't know what he's going to come out and train. I already had train anyway. It didn't matter. It was just heal up, and I mean he also again as proof Mug. Tanked Goner, tanked the Havoc Wing, and just he was fully equipped to be hit.
Yep. Hashtag tank Mog in the chat. Arista, we got any other final thoughts, questions for Keith?
Not on my side, just GG's, and thank you very much for letting us restream your race. It was a really good one.
Thanks. Thanks everyone putting it on every week. So it's good to I enjoy watching them, so it's nice to be on this end of it sometimes, just to mix it up. But thanks to everybody for putting it on, and even double down for the league. It's something different to do. So, GG's to everyone.
Yeah. So after being Chupan's pal,
yeah,
it's always fun to get into the sort of events. We do have another one brewing in the works, and I have an idea of what it is. I don't know exactly what it will be yet, but I've seen the rough draft of it, and it looks really, really awesome. So certainly be on the lookout for that. And thank you again, Keith, echoing what Arusa said, for letting us broadcast you. Always appreciate it. Can't have the races without the runners, so thanks again.
No problem.
And good luck for the rest of the season. We'll catch you later.
All right. See ya.
All right, see ya. All right, Arista, we got any other final thoughts here from this seed before we head on out of here?
No, I think this is a very interesting seed. Like, it was well played by both runners. I mean, definitely, sometimes you just get no relics, and that sort of throws you off a little bit. But both runners handled it very nicely. I think like we mentioned a couple times, if anybody out there is interested and has not been part of Worlds Collide, I know we've mentioned it a few times, but it's a very welcoming community to newbies. Like I just started mid last year, and like the community does a really good job of providing resources and really helping people out, being willing to reach out to newer players and make sure you can figure out what's going on. So definitely encourage anybody, if you're interested, take a look.
Yeah, I think this seed was a really good showcase of the new stuff that's in season 3 of Ultros League. It kind of was perfect, right? We started with a Magitech user and Celeste, and we also started with Mog with the new check. So it was really cool to see all of that sort of fall into place here in week 5 of Ultros League. But there are three more weeks left, and we'll continue to be at our Wednesday 8 p.m. Eastern time here on one of the SpeedGaming family of networks. So big shout out to SpeedGaming. Thank you for featuring us once again. And I think that'll do it for us. So yeah, we'll be back here Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you again, Arooster, for doing commentary with me. Appreciate it always. I can talk and hear myself, and I love to listen to myself talk, I guess. But it's always more helpful to bounce ideas off of somebody else, so thank you again.
Absolutely. It's very much a pleasure. Have a good rest of your evening, everyone.
All right, catch you later. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.